Okay, so in this video demonstration, I'm going to be showing you how we can use Blender and Krita with an AI add-on added so that we can stream 3D data from Blender straight into Krita, like what you see over here. So I'm using this Blender Layer add-on, and here is the Blender file itself. So even if I move the viewport here, right, I can actually control what I see over here as well. So what is the purpose of this? Well, normally for AI assisted rendering for storyboard creation, you can draw and then the AI can render for you. But sometimes in terms of perspective, right, you need to have a 3D tool, in this case Blender, to help out positioning your characters or do a layout for the storyboard, so that we can have a proper perspective. We can also change the cameras, the focal length and so on, so that we can get the focal length that we want. So we can adjust the camera, position the camera, and over here you can see the way that the image is being rendered is because I'm using something called a Z-depth. So we are using the Z-depth information, right, to maintain the shape and layout of this image. So we have a couple of prompts over here. So the first prompt is two business associates having a meeting at a resort, and I'm reducing the strength to be at 90%. So let's just render this and take a look at what is the result. So the model used is Stable Diffusion, and it should give us several examples of this layout over here. So once it's done, right, we will see several examples that we can choose and pick what we want. Okay, let's say if you want to have specifically a male and female character, we can change the prompt accordingly. So let's say I want to change the view itself. I will just change my point of view to this angle instead, and then perhaps I will use this other prompt instead of two business associates. So I'm going to neutralize this first prompt and remove the hashtag here. So now it says two technicians, engineers having a discussion at a factory workshop. And I'm just going to hit refine, basically just to render again. So based on the Z-depth information, right, we'll be able to get the exact layout and the positioning of what we want to see. So this can be a great tool to help people, right, come up with concept designs and ideas very, very quickly. So this is just one example. Okay, so here is another example showing a layout which I've done in Blender, but this time instead of broadcasting the Z-depth information, I'm sending out a normal information, okay, using the real-time compositor feature of Blender. So this information is being sent over to Krita AI renderer, and one of its control nets is using the normal map. You can switch between any of these control nets, whether you're using the depth, which I previously used, but in this case I'm using the normal map. So the prompt over here says a family of three standing proudly in front of their Swiss cottage under the Alps. So I'm going to hit generate using the cinematic photo model, and we should have several examples being generated for us. And we should have the renders ready, and we can scroll through the ones that we want, and then we can actually apply to pick it up. So again, this is very good for generating ideas and so on. So I've got another prompt that I prepared, so I'm going to disable this prompt. And the second prompt says three real estate agents standing in front of a rundown property welcoming the person visiting the property and so on. So I'm going to hit and generate that. So again, this is still going to use the normal maps, right, or rather the normal rendering of this 3D layout, and is going to produce the rendering based on this layout. And now we can see that we have three real estate agents standing in front of a rundown property. So if I turn on and off between the rendered image and the layout, right, you can see that it actually follows quite closely to this, right? So this is an example of how we can use this tool for creating concepts or creating storyboards. And as usual, if we are not happy with this position, we can change the position of the camera. We can move it closer. We can change the focal length of the camera. Right, we can make it wider or make it flatter for a telephoto effect. So this one is now slightly wider. So now I'll just hit render again using the same prompt. So imagine if we are to change the point of view, we are to change the perspective and so on. If we were to draw this manually, it's going to take a long time. So you can see now we have another point of view, and you can see that it follows the image or the layout very, very closely. Okay, so in this example, I'm going to show you how you can use this setup where you send a 3D model of this concept, okay, of a futuristic aircraft, and then use the Krita AI, right, to complete the render. So you can see I already finished a couple of renders over here. So the prompt is futuristic airplane with a box-like wing flying over a modern city. So I'm going to temporarily switch this off, and then I can change my point of view, maybe change it to this angle instead, and then move it closer. All right, and then maybe change my focal length, maybe zoom it in a little bit so it's appear flatter, and then maybe go in a bit closer, and then I'll just hit generate again. So this time I'm using a slightly different model, okay, the SDXL model to render, and I'm using it optimized for digital artwork. So the result is going to be a little bit more like illustrations. So again, we're using the normal control net, all right, to use the information from the normal map, all right, to generate the concept drawing. So you can see over here the drawings, right, look a little bit like it is painted or drawn. So right now, if I want to do something that looks a little bit more photorealistic, I'm going to try to change to the XL cinematic photo instead, and I'm going to hit generate. So because we have just changed the model, it's going to take a short while to load the model, and normally SDXL's AI models, right, should be able to generate fairly quickly. So you can see the progress line over here. So how fast it renders depends on the graphics cards you have. And then when it's done, we should be able to see the result, but this time in a much more photorealistic result like that. So you can see a couple of designs that is available here. So I'm going to exit a little bit. I'm going to change my angle a little bit, maybe change it to this instead, and reduce the focal length. So give it a much more stretched look. And then I'll hit generate again. So again, we are using the same prompt. So if we want to perhaps put this ship in space settings, then we just need to prompt it accordingly. In fact, that's what I'm going to do right now. I'll say futuristic spacecraft flying over the atmosphere of Jupiter. All right. So let's see the result. Okay, not too bad. And based on this, right, we can actually use this for to refine the concept. Okay, so now that we have a new prompt, I'm going to try this new prompt. And before I try the new prompt, I'm going to change the angle again, like that. And then I'll hit generate. So of course, if you are able to enter more details and descriptions of what you want to see in your AI render, you just need to put it into the prompt. And there you go. We have a couple of new images. So you can see that, yeah, sometimes the AI will remove parts of the spacecraft. But again, if we do not want the part to disappear over here, we can reduce the strength to maybe 95%. So we are forcing it to stick closer to the design over here, like that. I'll change the angle a little bit, and then I'll hit render again by clicking on the refine. And also I'm rendering at a relatively low resolution, 512 by 512 pixels, so that it doesn't take too long to render. So if your image size setting is a bit too big, right, it's going to take a little bit longer to render. Right, so we're almost done, and now we can see, yeah, it's this one slightly better. We can see the part here is connected. All right, so now instead of an aircraft, it looks more like a spaceship. So yeah, this is a very, very powerful tool, right, which you can use to come up with concepts very, very quickly. Or if you are using it for storyboarding purposes, this is excellent for creating very good storyboards with the proper perspective and the angles that you require, right?